From Sangamon Auditorium on the campus of the University of Illinois Springfield, the Lincoln Academy of Illinois presents the 2002 Convocation and Investiture of Laureates, a legacy of leadership. A business and civic leader committed to improving the quality of life in his hometown. A pioneer in the performing arts who has changed the face of dance in America. A corporate leader who places community involvement at the top of his list of best practices. A religious leader whose life's work has built bridges of understanding between people of faith. A veteran journalist whose career has made him an eyewitness to history. And a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who shines a light on the darker side of human nature. All 6 of these outstanding Illinoisans are being honored this year as laureates of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois. Each laureate represents a legacy of leadership and service to humanity that has been recognized by the Academy since its founding in 1965. By their words and deeds, they join more than 200 laureates who have brought honor to their home state in the spirit of that most famous Illinoisan, Abraham Lincoln.
The purpose of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois is to bestow the Order of Lincoln upon deserving Illinois residents to recognize them for their outstanding lifetime achievement. It's not surprising that there are people who have had outstanding success in their lives, but also people who have given back to the community through charitable and civic activities. We recognize different categories of endeavor: the arts, performing arts, education, religion, social services, athletics, medicine and science, and people in these areas who have not only excelled personally but also given back to their community are our honorees.
Patterned upon the learned academies of Europe, the Lincoln Academy is unique among the 50 states. Members of the nonpartisan, not-for-profit academy are appointed by the governor, who also serves as its president. Each fall, the academy meets to select the laureates who are to receive the Order of Lincoln Medallion the following spring. The state's highest award for individual achievement, its colors of red, violet, and green symbolize the state bird, the cardinal, the state flower, the violet, and the leaves of the state tree, the oak. In addition to its laureates, the Lincoln Academy also recognizes potential leaders of tomorrow by honoring the outstanding senior students at each of Illinois' 4-year colleges and universities in ceremonies held each fall at the Illinois State Capitol.
I now ask that John T. Trutter, Chancellor Emeritus and a laureate of the Academy, read the citation for Laureate Frank W. Considine. Mr. Trutter.
Born in Chicago, Frank W. Considine is retired Chief Executive of the American National Can Company, and whose lifelong leadership in business and philanthropy has helped make Chicago a better place to work. Mr. Considine clearly believes in hard work and has applied that same philosophy to civic and charitable causes. He chaired the Illinois Leadership Coalition, is vice chairman of the Archdiocese of Chicago Finance Council, and belongs to the Civic Committee of the Commercial Club, which is dedicated to improving Chicago's economic and social well-being. Mr. Considine knows that a great city is judged by its culture, and he has contributed much to Chicago's institutions. As chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Field Museum of Natural History, he led the effort to realign Lakeshore Drive, which transformed the campus itself. He has served on the boards of the Lyric Opera of Chicago, the Museum of Science and Industry, and Loyola University. Governor Ryan, it is my privilege to present to you a laureate of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, Mr. Frank W. Considine.
I believe in being involved in the community, using what skills or position you may have to influence others to help the community. And that's very rewarding. It's rewarding to not only the community but yourself. You feel better about yourself, feel better about your company when you're involved.
Frank Considine's current role as chairman of the board of Loyola University Health System is but one example of decades of community service in the Chicago area. Long respected as one of the city's most influential business executives and civic leaders, Considine credits his alma mater with setting him on the right path.
In the liberal arts curriculum and in all the curricula at Loyola, they're strong on ethics. They're strong on values. They had, of course, the accounting department and things like that was a different kind of value, but the liberal arts curriculum was languages and Latin and ethics and a lot of that kind of philosophy. And it was a good preparation for time to come, I think, for the later experience in life that I had.
After college and service in World War II, Considine entered the packaging industry. He built a distinguished career that saw him rise to chairman, president, and CEO of American National Can Company, a company whose innovative products revolutionized the soft drink industry.
We really developed what they call the pop-top beverage can. We were the first ones in the market with it, and that led to some success, obviously, because everybody wanted it, and we couldn't produce enough, which was a nice feeling for, not for long, 6 months or so. Then we developed the two-piece can that you have now. Everyone takes it for granted, but there used to be 3 pieces, a top and a bottom and a body. We developed a two-piece can and ran with it.
Considine believes executives need to embrace integrity and ethics to restore public trust in their companies and the stock market.
Remember that integrity is the hallmark of character and quality, individually and corporately. And executives know when they're going over the edge. They try to be creative. I understand being creative. I think that's one of the priceless ingredients if it's properly used, being creative. But don't do it in such a way as you're attempting to deceive the public. Some of these situations, just out and out misrepresentation.
Active in numerous Chicago business and civic organizations, Considine is intensely interested in the city's continued economic development by improving surface transportation and easing overcrowding at O'Hare International Airport.
People don't realize the impact that that airport has on our economy and on the individual jobs of everyone in the area. Everyone in the area. And if you don't expand, if you don't keep up, change will pass you by. And the airplanes can just as well fly over Chicago and go to Denver or someplace else.
Considine has served Loyola University as a member of the Board of Trustees and chairman of the board. The university's role in the region's quality of life is a long-standing interest.
I think the medical center, without question, is an outstanding institution for clinical treatment and at the high end of clinical treatment. Large in Children's Hospital, the heart program is large and a good one, and the Cancer Institute Cancer Center is fine. So those are things that are building, and they're building now a new outpatient center. And for the western suburbs, they've taken in and put in about 18 primary care and some clinical care facilities out in that area, which has expanded our scope significantly.
Many of Chicago's important institutions, like the Field Museum of Natural History, have benefited from Considine's leadership. He believes each institution contributes to the city's growing success as a corporate headquarters.
Field Museum, Museum of Science and Industry, those are wonderful cultural aspects of our city. That's why people come here and want to work here. Corporate headquarters will stay here. Lyric opera, outstanding. The symphony orchestra, outstanding. And it's incumbent on the business community and business leaders to be involved in the community for the sake of the company and their employees.
Never content to live with the status quo in helping his community, Frank Considine continues to look for new opportunities to help Chicago.
I love to accomplish things, just for the fun of it. And life is very exciting that way. And there's great opportunities and so much to be done. yet to be done.
President Bush today said, or this week, in a speech on the West Coast, made a call for business ethics, ethics on the part of the business executives in our country. And our president was right on. We're experiencing a lack of behavior, ethical behavior, some of it illegal, by some, not and only a few companies and their executives, and I think it's a disgrace. But our economy is based on integrity and trust. And to remedy this sickness, I suggest a large dose of ethics in the curriculum of our high schools, universities, and business schools. President Bush was right. And I say we must get integrity back into our nation's economy, or if we don't, look out for more regulation of business. Thanks very much, and I appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Lou Conte was born in DuQuoin, downstate, majored in zoology at Southern Illinois University, but went on to become an innovative choreographer whose artistic vision and dynamic style have won international acclaim for his dance company, Hubbard Street Dance, Chicago. As sole choreographer for the troupe in its early years, Mr. Conte developed Hubbard Street's trademark style, a freewheeling fusion of the elegance of classical ballet, the energy of jazz dance, and the innovation of modern dance. Today, Hubbard Street's 20-member troupe tours the United States and abroad, performing before more than 130,000 people each year. Hubbard Street Dance is not just one of the most successful dance companies in the United States. Its international reputation has raised Chicago's cultural profile. When Mr. Conte retired as artistic director in 2000, after 23 years, he left not just a great dance company, but a dynamic cultural institution. Governor Ryan, it is my pleasure to present to you as the laureate of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, Mr. Lou Conte, my friend and neighbor.
I didn't know what the rules were to start a dance company. I didn't know that there was a certain whatever to do it. I just did things the way that I did them, sort of like the way Chicago does it. And I think that because I'm from the Midwest and everything that happened in Chicago being from the Midwest, the company really reflected the Midwest. It was energetic and basically wholesome. I know that's kind of whatever, but it was wholesome. And at the time, that was really good.
For Lou Conte, the path to the bright lights of Broadway and a career as one of the world's most influential choreographers began deep in the southern Illinois coal fields of the 1940s.
When I was 7 years old, I saw some kind of a little show in DuQuoin, and they were tap dancing, and I wanted to learn how to do it. So I asked my parents if I could learn to tap dance, and that's how I started. Mildred Hall from Benton used to go around to different little towns in southern Illinois teaching, and that's who I started taking tap lessons from.
Conte studied ballet while pursuing a zoology degree at Southern Illinois University Carbondale in the early 1960s, but his talent as a dancer soon landed in parts in some of the decade's biggest shows on Broadway, like How to Succeed in Business, Mame, and Cabaret, working with the greats like the legendary Bob Fosse.
I think one of the most exciting things about the whole thing is the kind of people that you got to work with and how they influenced you, even though you didn't really know it at the time. Just such pursuit, it's like the Olympics, that pursuit of excellence, and nobody tolerated any bad behavior or time or anything. And when I say bad behavior, I mean professionally.
Conte toured Europe with the George Riche Ballet, but his Midwestern roots ran deep. He wanted to teach, and the Chicago dance scene of the early 70s offered a golden opportunity for him to share his experiences with others.
I'd been teaching for a couple of years before that, but in a studio here and a studio there. And because I was choreographing musicals and industrials and whatever in Chicago, I was having trouble finding dancers that had the kind of training that I needed in order to do my work. And that's why I really started teaching. I mean, they asked me to, because I would say, you need to go study. You need a ballet-based theater kind of dance. And they said, well, there's no place to study that here.
Hubbard Street Dance Chicago began in 1974 when Conte was asked to stage performances at area senior citizen centers. Word of mouth soon had the troupe dancing at bigger venues, like the Chicago Cultural Center.
Because I had trained classically and had a Broadway career, and my strongest influences, that's what I used for my choreographic vocabulary. And it was a blend of these things more than doing a ballet piece or a jazz piece. It was just a blend of the whole thing, and that created a sort of a new style. We were quite different at the time. We had like a theater, well-trained dancers doing theatrical kinds of dance that hadn't been done before. So it worked really well.
The critics loved them. As Chicago and the world embraced the new dance company, Conte expanded the troupe's repertoire by bringing in young choreographers who were breaking new ground.
Let me see that. I want to say this arm. I don't care about this arm.
I was lucky. I got some really good ones. And then, of course, in 1990, we did start a great relationship with Twyla Tharp that lasted for 10 years. And, of course, her name gave us such... not only her name, but the reality of what she gave the company gave us incredible, what's that word, when people respect what you're doing? I mean, all of a sudden, people that thought, oh, they're a little jazz company, all of a sudden now, well, if Twyla Tharp is working with them, there must be something there. And that was true. She really helped us.
Hubbard Street Dance Chicago and the Lou Conte Dance Studio moved into new facilities on West Jackson in 1998.
The entire company, the board and the corporate people that paid for everything, all contributed so much to, really improving the life of people, not only in Chicago, but wherever we went. It gave them pleasure. So that's a great feeling.
Lou Conte retired as artistic director in 2000, his reputation secure for having raised the bar for dance in Chicago and far beyond. Hubbard Street is never far from his thoughts. He's excited about new directions, like Hubbard Street 2.
It's a comprehensive program where the schools are involved, and we send teachers out to the schools, and we bring actual school teachers into the studio to teach them dance so that they can, in turn, talk to their students about it, so that we're trying to demystify what this whole process is. I'm still the director of the school, and that's, because training people and training the next generation of dancers is, Darwinian. I mean, it's going to go on. Hopefully they'll evolve, and so the company, the Hubbard Street Dance Chicago is a collective thing now, and doing good work in the arts, I think. I'm very humbled and at the same time proud to be elected as a laureate to the Lincoln Academy. It's a very prestigious honor, and at the same time it feels really good to think that your state has said to you that you've done a good job. So this feels really good, and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Born in Chicago, Jack M. Greenberg is the innovative president and chief executive officer of the McDonald's Corporation, and he has earned the respect of the business community and the gratitude of numerous civic and philanthropic causes. Mr. Greenberg is a successful motivator because he leads by example. He includes as necessary standards of conduct, treating others with respect, listening for understanding, and assuming the best motives in people. By personally following these precepts, Mr. Greenberg has earned the respect of his peers in business, civic, and charitable activities. In counterpoint to Mr. Greenberg's intense dedication to the welfare of others is the self-effacing manner in which he delivers the benefits of his efforts. This was poignantly characterized by his explanation recently that McDonald's Corporation and Ronald McDonald's Charities had contributed $2 million to the September 11 relief effort simply because, as he said, and I quote, "we are helping our neighbors," end of quote. Governor Ryan, it is my privilege to present to you, as a laureate of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, Mr. Jack M. Greenberg.
I remember well the time I was working in a McDonald's restaurant assembling Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, and the 16-year-old supervising me, and I joined the company as an executive vice president, said, "Jack, go faster." And I looked at her and said, "I'm doing the best I can." So I think those experiences were terribly important to understand the business.
After 20 years at McDonald's, Jack Greenberg still likes trying his hand in the kitchen and out front at the counter. It's the best way for him to make sure that things are running smoothly for employees, owner-operators, and suppliers.
It is great fun to think about what it takes to supply and staff and take care of customers in 30,000 restaurants and serve 46 million people every day. The logistical problems, the training, the kind of enthusiasm and dedication it takes of our people to run a quality restaurant every day. It is an enormous undertaking, and it is kind of fun.
Greenberg joined McDonald's in 1982 after 18 years with the Chicago office of Arthur Young & Company.
One of the things that was very clear from the beginning at McDonald's is that the whole value structure was, I think, well understood. Ray Kroc, our founder, started this business talking about having values when we were poor, and we did. And there was a time that I joined that the values were very clear. Support of the community, giving back to the communities in which we do business was an important part of our ethos. That's how we thought about ourselves. We continue to feel that way today. I think I'm most proud of our Ronald McDonald House Charities activity, where we've now given well over $300 million away to families and children in need around the world. In fact, Ronald McDonald House Charities is sponsoring the first ever World Children's Day event at McDonald's, where on November 20th we're going to raise money for children in all 30,000 of our restaurants. And we are partnering with UNICEF in several markets, too, to help them raise money for their good works for kids around the world.
Widely recognized for its leadership on issues like the environment and animal welfare, Greenberg says McDonald's takes its commitment to social responsibility very seriously.
In the 21st century, social responsibility is not one of those nice things to do. It's what your customers and your employees expect you to do. It's also the right thing to do. It's consistent with our values, and so we do take the social responsibility activities very seriously. They're not programs. They're part of how we want to behave as a company.
Diversity is another core value.
We do value the team, and if the entire team has grown up the same way and has the same ideas, it's not the same energy as a team that has diverse views. So at the heart of our diversity efforts is a belief in the diversity of the team and in leveraging a team to improve the business. And that leads you to hire people of all races and genders and faiths, ethnicity, and that's exactly what we've done. And I think we've got a great record on diversity. Our owner-operator system is reflective of the community at large. Clearly our employee base is as well. And as I said, I think there's more to do here. This is not something that you ever think is exactly right, but I think our record would stand out among big companies in America.
Greenberg believes DePaul University gave him lasting values. He earned law and commerce degrees at the Chicago Institution and went on to serve DePaul as a trustee and chairman of the board.
I think DePaul was teaching ethics before anybody thought that was important to do. DePaul taught me a lot about diversity, about access, about the importance of competence. In addition to that, DePaul is one of those unique institutions that has always provided access to people. It's one of those universities that in its 110-year history hasn't ever had quotas. So people of all faiths and races and ethnicity have been invited there. They had women as students before women were allowed to vote in the United States. So it's that kind of a place, and it's why it's always been an important part of my life.
Greenberg plays an active role in many of Chicago's business and civic organizations like the Executives Club, Commercial Club, National Policy Association, and Council of the World Economic Forum. He's also a member of the Board of Trustees of the Field Museum and Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
I think all of us that live in the Chicago area have a special responsibility to keep Chicago the great city it is, and it is one of the great cities of the world, and keep it vibrant. And that means you got to support the community programs. It's not just economic development, but it's things like the Field Museum, which is such a treasure, the Chicago Symphony, some of the other things that we are especially proud of in Chicago.
From private life to corporate life, Jack Greenberg says it all comes down to trying to make a positive difference in the world.
I think the big payback for doing what we would consider community service is that there's enormous personal benefit in the friends you make, in the people you meet, in the satisfaction you get when you actually get something done that make a difference. And so I think most of our efforts end up doubly repaying us in terms of the satisfaction you get in life. And that's what keeps me going at McDonald's.
I am honored and proud. Honored to be included in the company of the outstanding laureates of 2002, and proud to join so many of the people I've admired in my life who have preceded us in the Lincoln Academy. I'm proud of the 1.5 million people who work under the Golden Arches, and I identify with the core McDonald's value of giving back to the 30,000 communities we serve in 121 countries, because it's consistent with my personal values. That commitment to social responsibility has become an enduring way of life for the people in our company, and I stand here today representing that heritage. Ronald McDonald House Charities' environmental and animal welfare leadership, our record of success on diversity, are today's examples of this heritage. I am deeply honored by the Lincoln Academy, and I'm more committed than ever to live up to the high standards set by my fellow laureates. Thank you for this honor.
Born in Munich, Germany, Rabbi Herman E. Schulman is a spiritual and civic leader whose devotion to Judaism is expressed in his concern for the welfare of the community at large. In 1955, Rabbi Schulman began his 31-year tenure at Emmanuel Congregation in Chicago and engaged in ecumenical work that made him a leader in interfaith circles. He served on the City of Chicago's Human Relations Commission, was elected president of the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago, and was named president of the Council for a Parliament of the World's Religions. Now, after a 53-year ministry in Illinois, tonight's honor recognizes his contributions to his adopted country and state. Rabbi Emeritus of Emmanuel Congregation since 1986, Rabbi Schulman continues his civic, spiritual, and academic work to which he has dedicated his life. In fact, currently he is teaching courses at Chicago Theological Seminary and Garrett Theological Seminary in Chicago and Evanston. Governor Ryan, it is my privilege to present to you as laureate of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Herman E. Schulman.
Hello, Rachel. I'm Rabbi Schulman. I guess you know that by now. Over the 50 years that we've been in existence, now is our 51st session this year, I dare say we've had more than 100 young people going into the rabbinate, others into the cantorate, others have chosen education as their life's work, as a result of what they've learned here and what they experienced here. We've had hundreds of weddings out of here, which is just absolutely marvelous, because some of us officiate at weddings of young people that we have had here as campers.
The hundreds of children at play at the Olin Sang Ruby Union Institute are a source of constant joy to Rabbi Herman Schulman. Rabbi Schulman helped found this first-of-its-kind summer camp for Jewish children over half a century ago at Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. A place to play, study, work, and pray, it's a living testament to a life spent in teaching, service, and reaching out to others.
Teaching has really always been not only the heart of the rabbinate, it is really the identification of the rabbinate. And being able to share with others and discover with others new insights, both in sacred texts, but also in the possible answers to the questions that life poses, continues to be, to me, an exciting and ever-stimulating and never-ending enterprise.
Herman Schulman came to the United States in 1935 to study at Ohio's Hebrew Union College, narrowly escaping the Holocaust to become one of this country's most respected Jewish educators and a national leader of Reform Judaism. The genocide of millions in the Holocaust transformed his views of God and how he should express his faith.
I've come to the conclusion, number one, that God is neither omnipotent nor omniscient, but that God is a sufferer, and that the suffering God is the God of Auschwitz, that he suffered with his people. I realize that God needs me, that the suffering God is a God who is looking for, reaching out for, in need of those of us who, so understanding God, are prepared to serve him, and to bring him joy, and to really simply let God know I'm here. Here not only for other human beings, of course, that is self-understood, but also here for God.
Chicago's Emmanuel congregation thrived under his leadership and example for more than 3 decades. As president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, colleagues say Rabbi Schulman has had a tremendous influence on Jewish life in America.
He's a model of rabbinic scholarship. He's a model of rabbinic teaching. The Yiddish word is mensch. He's a model of what it means to be a mensch in the full sense of the word, to be a complete human being, to be caring, to be involved, to be in contact with other human beings.
Rabbi Schulman found a kindred spirit in the late Cardinal Bernardine, who reached out to all faiths to address some of the Windy City's most pressing problems through the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago.
The question of the homeless, question of insufficient educational facilities for the poor, not sufficient medical facilities for ghetto dwellers, matters of police brutality.
Believing that the faith of others is important to one's own faith, the rabbi is committed to the work of the Parliament of World Religions in bringing people of faith together.
When I'm with others and see how they address these questions, what response they give to the question that life and God poses, then I learn something.
Surveying a life filled with accomplishments, the Olenseng Ruby Union Institute is one of Rabbi Schulman's most cherished, but his faith teaches him that there's always more that can be done.
Over and over again, I know that I'm in a total stance of unremitting gratitude to the fact that the miracle that I am operates and lives within the miracle that the world is, and that therefore that mystery that somehow I sense behind it all and through it all, which we call God, is beckoning, asking for more, never satisfied that I've done what I maybe should do or could do. And so it just simply goes on, I hope, for as long as there is strength and life.
Abraham Lincoln spoke some words whose simplicity and power are so profound that they ought to be the guiding star, not just of his life and time, but of ours. With malice towards none, with charity for all. So Lincoln said as he finished his inaugural address, for these words are the true path to reconciliation, to peace. They are the healing hand. They are God's own hope.
Born in Chicago, Bernard Shaw is a respected television journalist and former CNN anchor who for more than 30 years brought news and insightful commentary on national and world events into our homes. During his 20 years at CNN, Mr. Shaw covered some of the top news stories of the day, winning the loyalty of viewers and the admiration of fellow broadcast journalists. It was, though, in 1989 that Mr. Shaw reported live as the unprecedented student demonstrations unfolded in Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Still, many of us remember Bernard Shaw reporting live from Baghdad at the start of the Gulf War in 1991. Mr. Shaw and two others reported 16 hours non-stop as bombs fell and sirens wailed. Because Shaw's CNN team was the first to broadcast the story, rival networks carried his reports, which reached 1 billion households. His work at CNN, declared veteran newsman Marvin Kalb, set an unmatchable record of personal and professional integrity. A remarkable tribute to a remarkable gentleman. Governor Ryan, it is my privilege to present to you, as a laureate of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, Mr. Bernard Shaw.
Skies over Baghdad have been illuminated.
It showed that we could be in some of the worst places at the worst time, or the best time, depending on your point of view, and produce and cover it. It was fascinating. I think it was made even more emphatic because we were the only ones there doing that.
From his early days in Chicago news to the anchor desk at CNN, Bernard Shaw has been an eyewitness to history. His trademark reporting style, straightforward, factual, and unflinching.
I try to approach it with curious innocence. I find that if I go into a story, an interview, or covering a story with a certain mindset, I'm in trouble because my senses are dullened to what has happened. I try to be receptive to everything and anything and everyone and anyone. That's the only way I can feel that I have acted like a kind of vacuum cleaner, pulling in all kinds of impressions, facts, quotes, and what have you, so that when I sit down to write, I'm writing based on what's been told me, what I saw.
Growing up in a household that consumed dozens of newspapers a week, Shaw decided at age 13 that he wanted to be a television news correspondent. He studied history at the University of Illinois and landed his first job in radio news in Chicago after a tour of duty in the Marine Corps. In 1971, he joined CBS TV covering Capitol Hill.
Well, journalism is journalism. People might think that in television news, pictures matter most, but I differ vehemently. The printed word, the written word, is preeminent in journalism because journalism is writing.
Shaw joined ABC News in 1977, covering Latin America. He had risen to the top as ABC's senior Capitol Hill correspondent in 1980, when he learned of Ted Turner's plans to launch a 24-hour cable news network.
I went to CNN because I felt that this would be the last frontier in network television news. And the idea simply was to report news, to cover news, to do it as live as possible, wherever possible, anywhere in the world. It gave your viewers, consumers, news on demand, not when we decided they should see the news or hear the news, but when a person wants news, they can turn on the television set at 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, and hopefully be adequately informed.
Shaw's reporting and anchoring would take him to 46 countries on 5 continents over the next 20 years, Often, he found himself face to face with world leaders and on the scene for live coverage of historic events like China's pro-democracy protest in 1989. 2 years later, Shaw and CNN reporters John Holloman and Peter Arnett brought the start of the Gulf War live into living rooms around the world.
I'd made my peace with the fact that at any moment I could die. Tom Johnson, the president of CNN, was convinced in his own mind that we would not survive the first night of bombing raids. My attitude was to focus on why I was there. You're a journalist, do your job. Fairly describe, and as dispassionately as possible, describe what you see, what you hear, what you know, what officials are saying.
Shaw relished covering politics. His favorite assignment at CNN, co-anchoring the network's Inside Politics.
We were doing it every day, and it was one pure hour devoted to nothing but politics. And then, guess what? Even 1 hour was not enough. 1 hour was not enough, especially during a presidential campaign year. What I loved was having both sides, having equal time and expanded time. What I loved was we weren't dealing in sound bites per se. You could do an 8-minute interview, and if you're doing your job as a journalist in 8 minutes, you ought to be able to get conflicting guests to express their views, to make their points and what have you, so that your viewers watching it can determine for themselves what they think the essence of the dispute or the story might be. I am stepping back from the table to write books, including an autobiography. Also, I am leaving to give back to my wifely friend, Linda, her husband.
Shaw stepped down in early 2001, saying that he wanted to leave while he was still at the top of his game.
What I like most about journalism and what it's done for me is that it's educated me. This is a beautiful world we live in, but it's flawed because we're flawed.
Looking back, Shaw says that as the only profession mentioned in the Constitution, journalism is crucial to our way of government, that freedom of the press, news, and information are the juice of our democracy.
As a heavy responsibility, I think it's a good calling. You'll never be bored. You might be overworked, you might be underpaid, but you will never be bored. I think it's a good calling. I think it was what I was meant to do. To come from this land of flat honesty is a birthright I rejoice in claiming. Whether from a street in Bronzeville, whether from the village or town, matters not. Our broad shoulders, our intellect, our reach are there for the world to witness and to know by our deeds and our words. We Illinoisans do so not in bragging struts, but quietly confident offerings, as if on cat's feet. I close with this affirmation: no matter the world, where I go in it, whom I meet, and what I do, always I shall be proudest that I am a son of Illinois.
Born in Quincy, James B. Stewart is a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer whose sharp reportage on financial issues has illuminated scandal, exposed corruption, and enlightened millions of readers. But writing as an investigative journalist was Mr. Stewart's true calling. After a stint as editor of the American Law magazine, he joined the Wall Street Journal. There he covered the Milken and Boesky scandals and the mergers and acquisition boom of the 1980s. His probing, detail-laden articles on insider stock trading and the 1987 stock market crash earned him the loyalty of readers, the respect of his peers, and a Pulitzer Prize in 1988. Mr. Stewart is the author of 3 national bestsellers of the 1990s, proving that nonfiction of top rank can be as exciting as any novel. As one national commentator on his career remarked, Mr. Stewart always has an eye on the big picture. Governor Ryan, it is my privilege to present to you, as a laureate of the Lincoln Academy, Mr. James B. Stewart.
I guess I've always liked stories. I've always liked to read. I guess my earliest memories really in Quincy were reading books, going to the beautiful old public library at 4th and Main Street, which is a sort of a child's fantasy of what a library should look like. It's now a museum, but at the time that was the main library, and I spent hours in there. I read everything I could get my hands on, and I think out of a love of reading naturally evolves eventually a love of writing.
James Stewart's career in journalism began in high school at his hometown paper, the Quincy Herald-Whig. A senior editor there described him as a tremendous brain whose work was crisp and clear.
That was my first taste of journalism, and I guess it was only later that I realized, I mean, I thought of it sort of as a hobby. The pay was quite low, although I was happy to get it. So I wasn't thinking of it so much as a money-making activity, but as something that was educational and I would learn something, but also turned out to be so much fun.
The young journalist went on to study law at Harvard, but never lost his love of writing. Stewart was executive editor of American Lawyer and a practicing attorney before joining the Wall Street Journal in 1983. Corporate raiders were the new breed on Wall Street.
Ivan Boesky, of course, took it to the ultimate extreme when he said that greed is good, but there was that kind of notion, permeating the canyons of Wall Street. It was like people could come from nowhere and become billionaires. The old guard was being shaken and cast aside. So it was a period of great dynamism, of great fortunes being made, and as it turned out, not surprisingly, I guess, it was also a time of great corruption and people taking advantage of this.
Stewart traced the rise and fall of Ivan Boesky and Michael Milken. His tenacity, impeccable research, and vivid writing earned him the Pulitzer Prize in 1988 for his coverage of the insider trading scandals and the stock market crash of 1987. His book, Den of Thieves, paints a telling portrait of the times.
In that kind of environment where so much money is being made, so much power is being wielded and accumulated, egos are so big, a sort of hubris sets in. It's like you can see a whole sort of world that it all makes sense to the people who are in the middle of it. But to everyone else, you can just see that whole world sort of like a big balloon begin to swell and rise up through the atmosphere, pulling ever more on its string from the kind of rest of society and its values. And sooner or later, the string snaps.
Stewart served as the journal's page one editor through the end of the 1992 presidential campaign. He stepped down to concentrate on writing books. The Clinton White House approached him to write an objective look at the Whitewater investigation. But the resulting blood sport gave readers more than the Clintons had bargained for.
I will say they're completely fascinating characters. In fact, people would say to me, well, weren't you angry with them? And there were some unflattering things in the book about them. They said, well, did you just put that in because you were angry because they didn't cooperate you? And I said, why would I be angry? I said, this is the most interesting project I could possibly have been working on, only thanks to them. And they're such fascinating characters. I'm not the least bit angry to them. I'm grateful that, they did suggest that I do this.
Stewart went back to his roots in Quincy to pick up the trail of another Quincy native, Dr. Michael Swango, convicted of poisoning fellow employees at the local ambulance service, yet allowed to practice medicine again and again with fatal consequences.
One reason I love nonfiction work is that I couldn't make this up. No one would believe it. But in several instances, he revealed in his interviews that he'd been convicted of a felony in Quincy. In one of those cases, he lied about what the felony was. But the other, he admitted that it was a poisoning case, although he said it was a miscarriage of justice. And he still got hired. One of these incidents was a panel of 3 psychiatrists who interviewed him and hired him to be a psychiatric resident. This was on Long Island in New York. It absolutely defies belief.
Suspected of as many as 35 deaths, Swango eventually pleaded guilty to murdering 4 people by lethal injection and is now serving life without parole in federal prison. Heroes also figure in Stewart's work. His newest book, Heart of a Soldier, is the story of Rick Rescorla, who was in charge of security for Morgan Stanley Securities on September 11, 2001. The former Vietnam combat officer led nearly 3,000 of the firm's employees out of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Rescorla died when he went back into the tower to search for stragglers.
From the very beginning, I wanted to know, well, one, why did he go back? Because he was out, along with virtually all the people. What would lead someone to go back into an inferno like that? That's baffling to me, just from the point of view of human nature. That's a question that his wife, who was left behind, I know is struggling with. And then the more I found out about him, the more I realized that his life prior to that is at least as interesting as the way that it ended. It's absolutely, again, it's a stranger than fiction, amazing story that I think in the end is very, really uplifting and hopeful, so that out of this tragedy, I think, will come a story that will, I hope, inspire many people who read it. Many times people ask me if I'm not discouraged or depressed by the fact that I write so often about scandals. And the answer is no. First of all, I think growing up here in Illinois, I developed at an early age a fundamental faith in the basic decency of my fellow human beings. And I always find there is an incredibly bright silver lining to these scandals, because what these scandals really reflect is our capacity for outrage. The terrible thing would be if we reacted to the Enrons of the world or the junk bond scandals of the world with indifference. It's because of these scandals, coming to terms with them and learning from them, that we have progressed as a society, and the world has become, in my view, a better place. I hope in my future work I will continue to reflect credit on the citizens of Illinois, honor on this academy, and I thank you again very much for this immense award. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and my honor to present the President of the Lincoln Academy, the Governor of Illinois, the Honorable George Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of all of the officers, the trustees, and the regents of the Academy, I would like to officially welcome all of you here to Springfield. What a beautiful day to be in Springfield. It's gorgeous here today. We have a great academy of people here, and they include the sons and daughters of Illinois who have distinguished themselves in a way that would make Mr. Lincoln very proud. And through your achievements, you carry on Lincoln's legacy, and you remind the world of the ideals that he stood for and the strength that he had to make a difference for humanity. As a state legislator and as a congressman, but especially as president, Abraham Lincoln often challenged his fellow citizens to, as he put it, elevate the condition of all people. He once said that our goal as a nation should be to lift artificial weight from all shoulders. He said we should clear the paths of laudable pursuit for all and afford everyone an unfettered start and a fair chance in the race of life. And so tonight we honor 6 Illinoisans who have met President Lincoln's challenge. In the early years of a new century, these 6 have proven themselves to be worthy to be called Lincoln Laureates. And they have shown that in our modern world, a world that's far removed from the travails of Lincoln's time, that compassion, truth, liberty, human decency, and personal expression still mean a great deal. And through their words and actions, they have shown us what it means to elevate the human condition. They're all different people, and they all have approached life in a different way, as you heard here tonight. But in the end, their voices have carried Lincoln's legacy forward, and they've shown us the path that Lincoln took to greatness is one that we should follow, even into the unknown world of the 21st century. I'd just like to say a personal note of thanks to the officers and the trustees and regents. This is the last time that I'll preside over this convocation as president of the Lincoln Academy. It's been a distinct pleasure and an honor for me and for Laura Lynn to meet and recognize the best and the brightest that our state has to offer. We have greatly enjoyed our association with this academy. From the members to the laureates and the students who work hard to claim an Academy scholarship, this organization makes our great state a better place in which to live, and I think that that's something that all of you can be proud of, and all of you are to be congratulated once again. So again, my congratulations to all of the laureates, and thank you for allowing me to be your president for the last 4 years, to you folks here. Thank you very much.